Well, thank you.
I will, FYI too, I'm fine sharing my screen and going through the slides as
Okay.
well. No, okay.
Uh,
Well, welcome everybody. We see people are starting to come into the room. For those that, we like to see you on screen and ask if you want to ask questions throughout. We'll be converting you to a panelist, so just accept that, and then you can go on screen and be able to ask questions and so forth. Also, as you're entering the room, if everybody can hear me, in the chat, if you can quickly, in short words, tell us what your business is, what you want your business to be, and then what do you want to get out of this class today? So my name is X. I want to be a hairstylist, and I'm hoping to get out of the class cash flow and business plan. If you could put that in the chat, we're going to try to personalize this discussion for the people here in the room today. So, in addition, we will start on time. I will give people a minute or two to get in, but this is Zoom. So when we say start at 12:30, we want to start at 12:30. So, which is 12:30. So, my name is Keith Leipson. As you know, I'm 2 years after Zoom, 2 years after COVID, I'm still getting used to Zoom. We used to do these face to face. I used to love seeing people in the room. So as people are being made panelists, I'd love to see you join on video, so at least I can see your faces. So welcome all to Simple Steps 1. My name is Keith Leipson. I'm one of the SCORE mentors. I'll be your, I guess, the person speaking the most today, going through the materials. In addition, we have William, Bill, another SCORE mentor, and then we have a representative, Christy, from the library, who, so we'll be talking about an hour and a half, and the library has a great presentation for an awesome service they have available for business owners in the counties, and if you're not in Cabarrus or Mecklenburg County, excuse me, these classes are broader now throughout the entire state. So she'll share resources that people can use associated with libraries that are also not here in Mecklenburg County. So, again, so my name real quick is Keith Leipson. I am a mentor. My background real quick, I'm a financial advisor. I am not a mentor to get clients. That's very frowned upon. So if anybody asks, I will completely say no. But the reason why that's helpful for you guys is I'm an independent advisor that professionally I help small business owners and people make smart choices. And a lot of times it's, corporate structure, tax planning, cash flow planning, a lot of stuff that you're all dealing with. In addition, throughout my career, I was at a big firm, went independent, had a business partner, a 10-year relationship that went south. So I've gone from sole proprietor to S Corp, had partnership agreements that were successful, that helped us get through a bad breakup. So I have a lot of also personal experience doing all these things that we teach as well. And that's why I love being a mentor at SCORE. So that's my real quick background. So real quick, Bill, you want to share your background with the room, and then we'll kind of get into the material as well. Did you hear me, Bill?
I'm working on it. I got a lot of people. I'm trying to promote the panelists.
Okay. So again, well, I was asking, did you want to share with the group who you are, or give your background?
Myself,
Yeah.
my name is Bill McDonald. I am a SCORE mentor for the Charlotte chapter. I've been with the organization for about a year. I spent my career, I am currently retired. I spent my first 20 years of my career as a director of operations for a McDonald's franchise. We had 12 stores in the Philadelphia market. And then in 1990, I bought a country store in rural Vermont, and I ran that for 25 years while also being chairman of the Vermont Grocers Association Board of Directors. So I had both my store and I was part of the statewide organization. My specialty obviously is food service, food and beverage service and small business planning. And yeah, it's been fun. I've got 10 active clients right now that are well on their way to starting their own business.
Awesome. Well, excellent. Thanks for sharing. All right, awesome. So people keep, like I said, as you come in the room, if you could add in the chat real quick your name, which I could see, what your business is, what you want your business to be, and what you're hoping to get out of this class. And I saw a couple questions in there already that I will address as chatting. So I see, I know as you all are seeing me, I'm looking down. I'm actually writing notes because I want to try to personalize the content for the people that are, for everyone in the room, but also try to make it specific for people who are putting stuff in the chat. So when I write it down during the class, it's easier for me to look down. So real quick with Lydia, business plan and cash flow, wellness products. All right. I used to go through the room and ask everyone to participate, but then I realized we took up too much time doing that. So continue to share in the chat. So you are at Simple Steps 1. I'm going to start the slides now. All right. Slideshow. Right. And did I share the screen? Share screen. Nope, I didn't share the screen. That works. All right. So you all should see the slides, correct? Bill, give me a thumbs up.
No, I'm not there yet.
There it goes. It's
There you
starting now.
All right. Thank you. So as a business owner, you will realize, like I was sharing with my other friends this earlier, I got on this call, you got to struggle with dealing with technology. So I have no internet problems whatsoever at the office, except only when I use Zoom. And both Windstream and Spectrum in my area do not have fiber. So I am limited to both those companies. I've tried them both. And so I plug into the wall. I turn off a lot of background stuff. And so I apologize for any lagging that occurs. And so we are at Simple Steps 1. You're thinking of starting a business, or you're in business and you're just want to learn the basics. This is a great core and foundation class. And it's going to cover a lot of the overview, right? So there's actually 5, section 2, 3, 4, and 5, which used to be done separately through SCORE. So this class actually covers everything in one kind of overview. And then with your mentor, with other people, and even online through SCORE, they have sessions 2, 3, 4, and 5 that you could do independently. So we're going to cover all the basics today. And I first also want to thank one of the larger sponsors of SCORE. SCORE is a nonprofit. One thing I will say, it's all through donations, and Truist Bank is one of the larger contributors to SCORE. Sometimes people think we're part of the SBA. We are not. The SBA is also a contributor. But we want to thank Truist Bank, who is one of the largest that makes these classes possible through their grants and donations to SCORE. Now, what is SCORE? SCORE, if you really don't know, it's a nonprofit that has offices all throughout the country. I know, there's one in, obviously in Charlotte. I'm in Cabarrus County, Concord. There's a lot of people here today that are throughout the state. And I know these classes, they've expanded it, so they're doing them on Zoom throughout the state. So if you're in other parts of the state, there are SCORE locations throughout the state. And also I want to encourage everybody here to get a mentor. So like Bill shared earlier, he's working one-on-one with people. I also work one-on-one with people. So you encourage everybody after this class, if you don't have a mentor, to go onto the same SCORE website and find, the closest location to where you live and request a mentor. And then they'll assign you someone like myself or Bill to work with you one-on-one. Also, you'll see a lot of great resources on that SCORE website also. And here's a list of all different locations throughout North Carolina that have SCORE mentors and SCORE locations. Just kind of for your information as well. Like I mentioned, there's actually other classes in this series. So what we're doing today, let me get my pen out. I like to kind of draw is here we are today, and it's really covering a broader overview of all these things right here. Okay. So on your own and with your mentor on your own, yes, you're going to do the work to, and this is also part of your business plan, right? What is your concept? What do you want to do? Who you are? How are you going to sell? How are you going to market? Who are you marketing to? What's your cash flow? And the last one, my face is blocking it. And then, if you need funding, how you're going to fund it. And that part of it could be your self-funding and so forth. So we're going to cover all of these in an overview today in session 1. All right. And again, feel free throughout this class to raise your hand, ask questions, and as it pertains to the topics, Bill will interject and stop me throughout to get those questions. It's harder for me while I'm talking to see the chat. So continue to put in the chat your questions, and then we will definitely do our best to address them. And sometimes Bill can address them independently throughout the discussion as well. All right. All right. So what we're going to do today, we're going to talk about the myths and realities of entrepreneurship, the myths and realities of owning your own business. What are the critical success factors to be successful? What are your options to owning a business? What are the components to business ownership? How do you make it legal? And again, everything we're talking about will all be part of a basic business plan. And then we'll equip you to do a self-assessment, which will guide you to see where you need to focus your energies on from here going forward, as far as what might be your, what areas we talked about today that you need to address on more. We'll have a self-assessment at the end, and then what are some good next steps? So what are some myths? Well, myth number one that people have about if you're an owner, a business owner for yourself, or you're an entrepreneur, is that you won't have to work hard or put a lot of long hours. I guess people still think that, and some people do, right? It'll be easy. No, it's not easy. Yes, you have to put a lot of work, and it will be a lot of hours. And yes, depending on your business, yes, as you grow, you can delegate more things and maybe back off on your hours, but it is a lot of work. And a lot of people don't realize how much work it's going to be and how many hours you have to put in. Myth number 2 is that your product is unique and that you have no competition. I know we all think what we're doing is unique, but at the end of the day, 99.9% of the time you have competition. Yes, there could be something so unique. You're the creator of the iPhone, or you're the first internet company. But most things that we're doing, and most people that come through our classes, what you're doing isn't that unique. You might have a unique way that you do something, but overall your product and service isn't as unique as you think. And there is a lot of competition. And so what you learned today and throughout, it was how do you separate yourself from that competition and make yourself successful. Myth number 3 is that you can deduct everything and you don't have to pay taxes. That is not true. If anything, there's more pitfalls of being a business for yourself that you have to be more careful, because now there's more eyeballs on you from the IRS to make sure you're doing everything correctly. Myth number 4 is that as an owner, you don't have a boss. That is correct to a certain extent, but even as an owner, you have people you have to answer to, whether it is the IRS. And in my case, I have regulatory bodies I have to answer to. I have the county. I have vendors that I work with. I have different products, and so you don't have a boss, but you still don't have full control of everything. And sometimes there are still people you have to answer to, depending on how you're structured and what you're doing. And myth number 5 applies. Myth number 4 is as an owner, you can do what you want. That is not true either. Yes, you have more freedom to create your vision, do your purpose, to grow as you wish and do as you wish. But again, in your business, there's a lot of things that you might want to do that you can't the way you want, due to regulations, due to rules, due to all other things around you that you learn as you get in business for yourself. So those are some myths and realities that hopefully that gives you guys some insight. All right. So why is this important? I think you all being in this class will help you in this next statistics. Just a lot of us know this, the success or failure rate of new businesses. After 2 years, most businesses are still, funny how this number changed. It used to be out of business in 2 years. Now it's out of business in 5 years. So most people will stay in business after 1 or 2 years. They might be struggling or building on debt. I see a lot of that, but they're still in business. But eventually you'll see the success rate. The longer you go, if you don't do it correctly, you will be out of business within 5 years. Okay. So that's why all the things you're learning today are important. And as you continue to work on it, will increase your probability that you will be on that successful side after 5 years. So what are some of the critical success factors that it takes? I always say if you didn't have these things, you probably wouldn't be in this class. But it is always important in anything as a business owner to be honest with yourself. Otherwise, you're just going to hurt yourself and maybe others around you. So some of the critical success factors is, do you have the experience and education in the field that you're getting into, right? So, obviously, if I want to cut hair and I go open a hairstylist salon, I have to have experience doing that, right? If I want to open an AC repair business, I have to have experience doing that. The two people I wrote down before I went to speaking that were in the chat, I saw a wellness product business, an e-commerce business. So do you have experience in those businesses? And then if not, do you then have people that do you have the resources maybe to hire someone who has that experience where you're lacking? Or are you going to partner with someone? And those are all the things you need to consider and so forth. Do you have a strong work ethic is critical. Can you effectively manage time? Can you multitask? Right? I have people that I've seen chiropractors that are great at being chiropractors, and they open their own practice and they don't realize all the stuff they have to do. And if they're not good multitaskers, they can't effectively time manage and do other things or delegate it, they're not successful as an owner of a chiropractic practice. They have to go back and either, find ways to solve those problems, or they go back and work for somebody else. Okay. Are you willing to take advice from others? You have to be willing to take feedback from others, whether it's vendors or customers and clients. Even myself to this day, 25 years of being a financial advisor, I had recently a client that I hadn't heard something for the first time in many, many years. But I thought about what they said to me, and I said, you know what? I'm going to add this to my initial meeting agendas to make sure that how you heard something doesn't happen again. They are a client of mine, but that feedback was very valuable. And interestingly enough, this analytic has been very valuable to my business because they're looking at all the details. And sometimes it's good to have people looking at stuff. So my point is, you have to be willing to take feedback from others. Even as a business owner, you can't take things too personally. A lot of this feedback you get from others will help you be more successful. And then last, do you have adequate capital? Whether that means getting money up front, but a lot of times adequate capital can mean cash flow planning to the point you have enough savings, maybe a spouse's income, maybe some other capital that could be used in an effective way to fill the gap while you're ramping up the business, getting the revenue in, all the different things. So there's a lot of detail in that adequate capital stuff and analyst discussion there, but do you have it and you need it in order to be successful? Okay. I hope that all makes sense. Again, if anybody has any questions, just raise your hand. This is always the part where it drives me crazy on Zoom, is I can't see people's faces. So I'm sure you're all going like this and we're all on board on the same page. Awesome. So now let's go back to those critical factors. And I love how SCORE has added this to the beginning of the Simple Steps presentation. Is cash flow planning, right? Is, do you have the adequate resources, right? So I know I kind of jump around a little bit when I speak because I want to make this a conversation, right? So this entire conversation is about your business plan, right? Business plan can be simple, short, sweet, and simple. 1 page for each thing. So when I look at a business plan, I want to know what's your cash flow plan, right? Cash flow planning is critical for any successful business, right? So are you writing down all the upfront costs of your business? It's going to cost me X, Y, Z to buy. I have to get a domain. I have to get hosting. I have to get liability insurance. I have to buy new lawnmower. I have to buy new server. I have to buy you got to write it all down. And then what are your ongoing costs, right? Start writing those down. And then people like me or your peers and your mentors will look at that list and say, wait a minute, you forgot that. Or what about this? And as you're ongoing, you'll learn things that you might have missed out. Write them down. Then you need to know what are your upfront expected revenue. But the bottom line, until you write this down, people like me and yourself and your partners and people can take this information and figure out, hey, how much revenue do you need to make money and be profit monthly? How much revenue do you need to make to break even and make profit, take money out of the house to go to your personal? And then even how many customers you need to see, how many products you need to sell, how many, I like to tell stories. I had a recent client who did hair and nails and waxing, different price points. She was renting a booth, so we had to figure out all those costs and then how many customers did you need to do hair or nails? And we helped, and then you could, if I saw 5 customers or 10 customers or 20 a day or a week, how much do you charge? So you got to have all this information about your cost, and then you can use a lot of, again, cash flow planning is what I'm trying to say here. And I could talk a lot. This is my favorite part. I could talk hours on cash flow planning, but start writing this stuff down and start figuring it out. And people like me and your mentor and other people can help you with a lot of different discussion points from this information. Okay. Does that make sense? Again, I'm assuming everybody's going like this, or I'm seeing, nose glazed looks. All right. All right. So let's go too fast. Okay. Okay. Right. And then also this one is also, I guess this one ties it down to the personal, right? So what do you need, again, what do you need personally at the house, right? So a lot of times if you're in business, back to how much you have to get out of how much you need to produce to break even, and then how much you need out of the business to go to your house, right? So you also want to figure out what your monthly cost to live is at home. Not just a minimum eventually, but here's my minimum at home. I need to get out of the business, but then eventually I want to have some money for retirement and put my kids through college, and I might need to buy a house, or I got to pay rent, and and then again, you have other things. So you want to figure all this stuff out as well. And then you tie it all together. Okay. How are you going to fund it? Right. So are you going to, so back to the upfront costs and even ongoing. So, again, I'm a very visual person. So when I look at the sheets, right. And so I have some businesses, you have your money fluctuates, right. I'm really busy these 4 months, and then I'm slow these 2 months, and I get busy again here. Right. And so you can map it out, but how are you going to fund all this? Do you have the personal savings? Are you going to borrow? I have credit cards here. I don't like credit cards. That's a risky decision. But again, to fund the upfront, and then do you need money to maybe fund, while you're ramping up? I have, again, telling stories. I had a client, she's a speech pathologist. She was in a key man space. She was renting one little office, and then she expanded and rented 2. But now they just left and they rented a much larger space. And we had to work. She had to go from seeing 25 patients to 75 patients. And part of that work was, how much savings do you need? And what do you have to produce while you're ramping up from 25 to 75 in this new location? And we had it all numbered out, right? So that is part of funding and sources of capital as well. All right. Make sense? And again, we're only assuming we're getting all of this. And if any questions, please shout them out. And Bill, feel free to interject and let us know we got one. So what are your options? And I'm going to keep peeking at my watch. Okay. I also peek at my timer to make sure I stay on track for time. So what are your options? All right. I was going to peek at the chat, but okay. So what are your options? So you want to get into business. So what are your options to getting into business, right? So there's several ways you can get into business. You can start from scratch. You can buy someone's existing business. You can buy a franchise. And then here's some overlap. You can be a home-based business, an online business, or then the last is a nonprofit, right? So obviously a home-based business and online business can overlap with buying a franchise, buying a business, or starting from scratch, right? But here's all the ways you can get into business. And there's pros and cons of all of them. So we're going to look at and address some of those pros and cons right now. So starting from scratch, what are some of the pros and cons of starting from scratch? So if you're starting a business from scratch, you are not hampered by anybody else's vision, right? You're not hampered by anything. It's your baby. It's your vision. It's your purpose. You choose everything, the scheme, the location, the everything. It's all yours. It's your baby, right? The disadvantage of starting from scratch is exactly that, is you're starting from scratch, right? So you have no customer base, no revenue coming in. You take on a bigger risk. You have no track record, right? So it's harder for you to get people to get to know and like and trust you, right? Another option, right? Those are all pros and cons of that, is you can buy someone's existing business, right? So I can start a beauty salon, I can start a wellness product business, I can start an e-commerce, I can start my own landscaping business, I can start my own XYZ business, or I can buy someone's existing business, right? There's a lot of people that want to retire, whatever reason, they're selling their business, right? One of the advantages of that is that if you buy an existing business, you have an established business with established customers, established processes. It's a known entity. You can review financials. And if you did want financing, and getting back to a lot of time to get that, I want funding and financing topics. Here's one of my jumping around points. Getting funding is very, very difficult. It's a big misconception that I see a lot, or we see a lot, is people think it's easy to get money from banks for small or new businesses, and it's not. It's extremely difficult to almost, I hate being negative, but almost impossible, right? A lot of banks want to see at least 2 years of financials, right? So getting back to this topic right here of buying an existing business, it can make it much easier to get financing. There's risk, and there's ways you can transition from the previous owner to take away the risk of buying a business a little bit, but it makes it easier for financing sometimes because the bank sees that there's already revenue, and they might consider a little bit of that more than from starting from scratch. Okay. Disadvantages is there could be hidden things you don't know. Maybe the business has a bad reputation. Maybe there's some bad debt, right? A big one is loyalty to the owner. So I talk about transition. If you buy existing business, you want to have a good transition plan, right? I know a client, landscaping business, that's what he's doing. He has young people working for his landscaping business, and he's going to transition that business to the people. And the people that are buying it are minimized from the risk that everyone is going to say, well, I don't know you, I knew that guy. I don't know loyalty to you. So again, the negatives is that you want to eliminate the loyalty to the previous owner by having a good transition plan, and you want to make sure there's no hidden risks that are there. But those are the pros and cons of buying an existing business. You also go buy a franchise. There is literally a franchise for every business. And getting back to resources now of SCORE is actually doing a webinar. I just saw the email from SCORE. It might even be tomorrow. There's a company called FranNet that are brokers for franchises, and they help you find franchises. You don't pay them. They only get paid if someone buys a franchise. And there's a franchise for anything. So the pros and cons of that, if you buy a franchise, it's got proven systems, proven products, proven services. They'll help you with marketing and sales. They'll give you ongoing support. The negative could be, they limit your freedom. They take an override sometimes, and they might have some limitations of what you can and can't do. So that's kind of the pros and cons of buying a franchise. A home-based business, if you're doing a home-based business, obviously it's convenient because you're working from home, less overhead, a flexible schedule. Now, this one, tax advantages, be careful. Be careful here. If you're not doing it right, you can get in trouble, back to that scrutiny. But that is an advantage if you do work from home. Just be careful, work with the CPA to make sure you're doing that correctly and that you qualify and so forth. And then disadvantages, obviously, this could be one, zone and deed restrictions. That also applies to any business. I have in my own neighborhood, a gentleman had a landscaping business, and it was clear he was running that out of his house. You can see the trucks every night, and then every morning the garage open, loading the trucks, and he got a letter from the HOA, clearly in our deed, you can't run a business out of your house. And now his solution, he's now renting somewhere else, a storage facility, and somewhere else to store all their stuff. So hopefully he did good cash flow planning, they can afford that, but you got to be careful of your restrictions. And obviously there's family distractions, and isolation is a negative of home-based business as well. Online business, we had an e-commerce person today. I saw that earlier. Obviously, low startup costs. You can sell anywhere. It's convenient. It's flexible. Disadvantages is a low barrier to entry. Anybody can do it. And another thing too, it's conversion rates are gotten very expensive. A conversion rate is, and any of our businesses, it could be that we talk about, you buy someone's business, or you start your own business. Again, if you have an online presence, or if you're marketing online and selling online, everybody's doing that now. It's easy to do, but also the conversion rate is converting a visitor to your website, to a client or a customer, or to come into your event or whatever you're doing. It's gotten expensive. It used to be, so anyway, you'll learn that when you try it. It's a disadvantage now. It's becoming harder to do. And obviously I have no personal contact and limited sensory. I am personally still a person that has a hard time buying things online because I want to feel, touch, and see it before I buy it. Okay. So those are pros and cons of that. And then the last thing that you can do is you can be a nonprofit. I didn't see if you had anybody that wants to do that today here in the class today. But we do have a lot of people that want to do nonprofits. Come through SCORE. If you're one of those people, we still always request you get a mentor. And when you request a mentor, let them know you want to be a nonprofit. There are mentors within SCORE that have a very good nonprofit background. So obviously, as a nonprofit, you can qualify for grants and aid. You can have some protection from liability, and you can get salaries. I do see a big misnomer of nonprofits. People think. You have a question, Bill?
Yeah, just a quick comment, actually. Sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead.
We do have one member who is seeking to start a nonprofit in our group today. So besides the information you're providing right now, I strongly encourage them to contact their local SCORE chapter and arrange for a mentor so we can help them through the process.
Yeah. And yeah, that without a doubt. And then thank you, Bill, for sharing. And then what I would say, and back to the advantages and disadvantages, back to that is the advantage is you can get salaries, right? And some people think I can't make any money in a nonprofit. No, there's some very large nonprofits that you can respectively earn a decent salary and not be gouging a nonprofit if it's large enough. And it's, that's a very big position. So I've seen decent salaries at nonprofits, so you can still do salaries there. But some of the disadvantages of a nonprofit, it is a lot of work getting started. And one of the things that I hear a lot from people who run nonprofits, and I actually was I'm in a business group that meets twice a month, and we had a speaker yesterday. No, today's Thursday, right? Yeah, Wednesday morning. And she ran a nonprofit locally here in Cabarrus County. And this next comment came up, which is struggling with getting finances, getting funding, and how hard it is to get funding, and how much time is spent getting funding. And sometimes I see that, people have a passion in a nonprofit, that they want to do, and then they end up spending all their time trying to raise money. And so that's a challenge, just to kind of put that out there for you. But if you can do it well to successfully, here's the pros and cons for you. And Like Bill said, if you get yourself a mentor, and the nonprofit mentors will be great for you to have on your as part of your team. Awesome. So what are the components of owning a business? So, okay. Again, I keep peeking at my clock only because I want to leave the respect time to see me looking down. It's also why I talk fast, but I'm still at a good pace right here. So awesome. All right. So back to now, let's talk about all the components of owning a business. All the hats you're going to wear. So at the end of the day, you are the owner, right? But you are doing all of this, right? So, again, I use chiropractors or massage like as examples, right? I actually go both ways. They love being chiropractors. They want their own practice. They go do their own practice. Actually, I have one, go back on a story. He had his own practice, got tired of it after a while, dealing with the billing, all this stuff, and say, you know what, I just want to see patients. Sold his practice, went to another practice, worked for somebody. I followed him because he was my chiropractor. 5 or 6 years there later, he said, you know what, I want my own practice again. And he's back in his own practice and he's loving it. So it goes both ways. But people don't realize all the hats you're going to wear, right? So you are in charge of accounting. You're in charge of hiring and firing. You're in charge of marketing. You are in charge, and I'm going to circle it, sales, sales, sales. At the end of the day, no matter what you do, you will not be successful if you don't have any customers, if you're not making money, right? So that's a big one. So if you're not good at sales, I have a client, very great product, great business. I started meeting with her. She had no sales background whatsoever, right? So all of our mentoring was, well, here's how you teach her how to sell. You have to go out, you have to market, you have to go to networking events. And so struggled a lot. Now, back to capital, she left corporate America. They were already kind of financially independent. So they were able to get through the struggling period so they had their own capital support their personal life. If she was a person who didn't have that, she definitely would have fell out of the business because she didn't know how to sell. Wasn't selling at all. Okay. So that's why I circle and emphasize it. You're also doing customer service, product fulfillment, managing facilities, technology, all those things. You're doing them all, right? As you grow, and this goes back down to cash flow planning, you will learn and possibly be able to outsource some of this stuff, right? One place I recommend outsourcing a lot is in the accounting and the bookkeeping, right? I can't do that. I don't want to do it. I outsource it. I pay someone. Can you afford to pay for that? You got to integrate that into your cash flow plan, right? Another thing, maybe you can outsource. If you're not good in sales, you can figure out, well, how can I partner with someone, or how can I maybe hire a salesperson? And then how do I, maybe if you can't afford it, or how do you build that into your cash flow? How do I structure a compensation plan or a revenue profit sharing plan? Again, I go off on a tangent totally in that area, but you're wearing all these hats when you're business for yourself. Okay. Business plan, get organized. Okay. I know I had a question in the beginning. Someone asked about the LLC in a bank account. I'm going to remember to get to that. There's a spot in the presentation, and when I get to it, I'll address that. All right. Why is this not moving? Okay. So marketing. So as I jump around again, back to business plan, right? So one section of your business plan is how you're going to sell the market, right? Please, when you write this stuff down, this is my own personal bias. Don't write a book. The more of a book, the less people are going to read it. Short, sweet, and simple. And I'm even a bullet point kind of guy. If everything is in paragraph format, and even communications, I've learned this over the years, people lose the message. Even when I email clients for my own business, I take my paragraphs a lot of times, and if there's 4 or 5 things I'm saying, I bullet point it out, right? So, because I realize people aren't reading it all, but they read all of it if I bullet point it, right? So, who are your customers? Who are you going to sell to? Who are you going to market to? How are you going to do it? What are the multiple ways that you're going to do it, and how you can integrate it all, right? So if that makes any sense, multiple ways, real quick, I'm just throwing some out. I'm going to do social media. I'm going to do Google ads. I'm going to do events. I'm going to do email marketing, boom, 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 boom. And then, you got to write it all out. So what is your strategy? What's your plan? And then how are you going to turn that activities into revenue producing customers or clients? Okay. What is your brand? I know branding is a big thing. It takes a long time to brand. Again, I'm only thinking out of my head because a lot of times for me, when I did my advertising, sometimes I'm like, well, I'm not really advertising here to get direct sales. To me, the value with branding is I know people are seeing my name and what I'm talking about. So again, I'm not a marketing guru expert person, but yes, what is your identity? What is your purpose? And are you consistent throughout? And then are people going to know, oh yeah, when I think of this company or that firm, they're about, X, Y, and Z, and that's your brand, and that's what you're trying to communicate to the marketplace. Okay. Sales, again, this is really key. So the whole process is how are we going to, again, I'll use me as an example. My company, we do investor education events, right? And so we also have email marketing. I do social media marketing. Our purpose always is people say, hey, was your marketing successful? How much sales did you get? Well, for us, it's not necessarily did I get a client or sell something. If I'm having an event, it's did I get people's emails, really? Did they register for the event? Because sometimes I have people, I would do Facebook marketing for an event. They would register for the event and not show up. Was that a success or a failure? Well, in my practice, it's neither. It's a success, really, because they're now in my email marketing. And I know now many, many times in the past, I've had that same exact scenario where that person then came to a future event because now they're getting my email. Okay. Or I've had people that, came to an event and didn't want to meet with me, but now they're in my email marketing, and years later, they reach out to me. So again, what is your process? What are your measurables? How are they all tied together? And then eventually when you get those people, what is your system and process to continue to keep them in your world? Because it isn't always the right time. That when is the right time for them or what have you, that they then think of you and then reach out to you? Or how are you following up with them, making offers to them to re-engage with you? So I hope that all makes sense, but that's sales, right? And then at the meeting, what are you doing to present your offer, communicate your offer, and then eventually turn them into a customer, and then ongoing process it and service it. Okay. There should be, think about that. Everyone's just different, and people like me and your mentors or your peers, if you're in a peer group in your industry, can help you with a lot of this stuff as well. All right. Again, normally when I say, does that make sense? And hopefully I'm seeing a lot of this and not a lot of blank faces. Okay. And if you have any questions, just raise your hand and continue to ask them, and then Bill will bring them to the room. Do you have the skills to do your business? Again, if you're weak in any areas of operation, you want to identify that now. And then how are you going to address that, right? Are you going to outsource it up front and then afford to pay for that service in your cash flow? Are you going to partner with somebody? Are you going to fill that through a vendor? And so forth. How can you improve on that skill? And so forth. What else is on here? Yeah, this again, it's all saying the same stuff. If you have any shortfalls or weaknesses, you got to figure out how you're going to fill that weakness. Okay, and do it successfully. This is also still part of marketing. Location. If you're at a brick and mortar, but same thing. Do you have a niche? Some people do, some people don't. We said earlier about competition. Most of us think we're unique, but at a certain extent, most of us are not. I don't financial 1,000 financial advisors. Now we all kind of do business differently. There's lots of people that cut hair and do landscaping and do e-commerce or do wellness products or do wellness coaching, or I mean, you name any of it, right? But if you have a niche within that space, yes, you want to highlight that in your marketing, in your advertising, in your speaking. You want to differentiate yourself of what you do have from any competition in the marketplace. And you want to have, obviously, good products, good, distribution and service, everything well, and make sure you do it. Those are all critical factors. What are you going to cost? What are your competition charging? Gosh, I could spend an hour on this. I get back to that. How many times I do that with back to the cash flow planning. Keith, how much should I charge for my service? I already gave you another one. I had a bookkeeping client. She was working for a contract company doing bookkeeping and accounting services, and wanted to go out on her own. And she was asking me, how much should I charge? And first I said, well, how much are the contract people charging them? And then, do you want to charge less? Can you afford to charge less? Will that help you get more clients that you're starting out? The whole conversation. But then eventually, back to the price, it is on a good cash flow sheet. You can figure out how much you need to charge to break even, how much you need to charge based on a certain amount of customers, and you can do all that work again here. I forgot how I went down a tangent, but that was at price to help you figure out what your price is going to be to charge if you're having a hard time figuring out and where you can be. And if you want more customers, can you afford to lower their price and raise the price? And again, helping you figure out what a good price starting point is if you're not there. But ultimately, you want to know what your competition is charging. You want to be competitive. I could, again, talk an hour for you, but hopefully that was helpful. And it's critical to every business, of course. Other critical factors when you're now accessing competition that you also want to be aware of when you're selling and marketing is, what are they doing? What are they providing? What are their strengths and weaknesses? And how can you do that? You can obviously visit their business, but just know, because there are some ways that you maybe can professionally differentiate yourself from the people that you are competing with in the marketplace. All right, so how do you make it legal? So any questions so far? All right, cool. So how do you make it legal? We do get this question a lot, right? So here's this is how you make, legal, right? S corp, proprietorship. So here's the most common that I see as a SCORE mentor and as a financial advisor working with a lot of business clients, and also being very active in the business community in Cabarrus County. The most common I see is sole proprietorships, LLCs, and S's. These are the most common. All right. So let me first say, anything I do today, I am not an accountant. I am not giving you tax advice. I am also not a lawyer. I am not giving you legal advice. I just, play one in real life. And, jokingly I say that. But in my professional life, I have a lot of experience with it. So I can talk with a lot of knowledge about it. But ultimately, yes, you always need to consult with your accountants and your attorneys to identify what is the best for you. All right. Especially, I know a lot of times, I have another client, he's an engineer. In the engineering world, there's a legal designation that's specific for that. I would have no idea, but I had the same exact conversation with them. And then the bow on it was, now you have to go see an attorney and put it in place if you want, or do it yourself. And then he went to see an attorney instead of doing it himself. And that the attorney said, hey, there's a special LLC or a PLL or something. So the point is, this is the different legal structures. The biggest difference to go from LLC, from a sole to an LLC, is you get liability protection, right? So if you're doing business as a sole proprietor and you make a mistake and get sued, or don't make a mistake, but someone wants to sue you anyway, right? And you're a sole proprietor, you have a house and a 401k and all this stuff, 100% of everything they can get access to pay any settlements. But if you're operating as an LLC or even a a C or an S, the only thing that is exposed to liability would be the company assets. Okay, that's the biggest reason people go from they'll leave the sole proprietorship world and go to LLC. And then the next jump that I see most commonly is from LLC to an S. That is just a piece of paper. So when you're an LLC and you want to be an S, the accountant file or you file a piece of paper with the IRS that says I'm an LLC, but now I'm going to file as an S. And the big reason why you're going to jump from an LLC to an S is taxes. There's a lot of tax planning you can do there. Okay. It also has the liability protection. So that's, but you also do partnerships. Any questions in this world? Again, I could spend an hour here on this. And if not, I'm going to move on from this topic. Okay, cool. So, but I will address, if I'm looking correctly, I had a question early on when I was reading the chat about I'm an LLC and about a bank account or a DBA. Can that person hear me? And can you jump in and make sure I understood that question correctly? It was a Sarah. And if not, if I'm putting on the spot, no worries. I'll try to answer it without you chiming in. Okay. So the question, so the way
Keith, I'm sorry.
Right.
She is here. She can hear what you're trying to say. It's Sarah Underwood.
Okay. So does she want to ask the question to the group, or do you want me?
No, the question she had was, she has both a DBA and an LLC, and she wanted to know if they needed separate bank accounts. My comment was that that's something she should talk about with her accountant, but most people or most advisors encourage separate accounts. They can be under the same business umbrella, but each business should have its own separate account.
Yes, I would agree with that 100%. Another thing also, FYI, a big component of leaving everything separate is if you commingle money, like you can move money from the LLC to your personal for spending, that's legal. But I'm talking about keep it separate. If someone pays you and you stick it in your personal account and you start commingling money and paying business bills from the personal account, you actually lose your liability protection. So definitely keep everything separate. As far as the LLC and DBA, I will answer that because I know it intimately because I actually do that myself. Now, I do that myself because initially I was a sole proprietor doing business as my company's name. And so I had gone to Register of Deeds and register my DBA name. And therefore, my local bank gave me a business account that said Keith Lapson doing business as. Then when I incorporated as an S Corp, which is similar to an LLC, I took my corporate documents and I went and got a corporate account. So I also have two separate accounts. So I only use both for different reasons, but that would come now to the personal talking to the accountant is when would I put revenue into the LLC versus the DBA account. But you can have both. And then that's another, if you want to talk to me even offline, I might be able to ask more questions and give you some more answers based on that part. But that's how it works. Okay. Hopefully that answered your question. If not, you can put it in the chat and we'll keep it talking about it. Okay. Hold on, moving along here. All right, there we go. Keep it simple, right? You're starting out. Sole proprietors are really easy. If you don't have a lot of access to risk, that's even easier. But even if you want to be an LLC, if you're courageous enough to do it yourself, I've had people, you can go right to the Secretary of State website in North Carolina and follow the steps to try on this. If they have it on the website, how to do it. If you're less adventurous and want to do it yourself, I think people that use LegalZoom. And with LegalZoom, it takes it through the process. And the third level is you hire an attorney to do it for you. But that's keeping it simple. Those are the ways to keep it simple. But once you start, making 60 to 80,000 in profit, I would definitely encourage you to talk to your accountant about filing as an S corp. Also, so now I'm going to move on. Also, make sure that you are complying with all government rules and regulations. So, depending on your business, are you complying with any local, city, county, state, and federal laws for licensings and stuff like that? Oh, what was it? I had a SCORE client. I'm looking at my brain. That's why I'm quiet. I'm blanking out. It was some type of psychology. But the way she was doing it, she didn't need to be licensed, but if she did it a certain way, she would. So it was really fascinating. But the point I had to her is I said to her, make sure you have a regular license. And she's like, oh, I did my due diligence. As long as I do, no, I can operate this way. But if I do boom, 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 then I have to go get this license. Right. So make sure, I know in my business, I have certain things, I have regulatory bodies that have to do with the state. So make sure you comply with local, state, federal laws and licenses based on your business and based on what you're trying to do. You can learn more about what is required by maybe asking your mentor, Google searching your industry. I always recommend and encourage people to be in peer groups. I keep talking about peer groups throughout. Peer groups as far as your industry. I know my industry, I'm in peer groups, right? It's great. I can go on a Facebook group and say, hey, anybody see this? Anybody see that? A lot of times, hey, who do you all use for your liability insurance? Who do you all use for your client relationship management software? How are you all doing this? So peer groups in your industry and even peer groups of other business owners. I attend a group twice a month and it's full of other business owners and other, people that work for companies, and we meet twice a month and we talk business and we exchange referrals and have speakers and so forth. So as I digress back to this point, make sure you comply. If you want to learn how to comply, Google, talk to peers, talk to other business owners. What are you doing? What are the labor laws I should be thinking of? And then as far as the IRS and taxes, that's where your bookkeepers and your accountants will help. If you're have someone like me on your team, or someone like me and you're an S corp, I would say, hey, yeah, don't forget, you got to do this and this and this. Why? Because I have to do it myself. And so I have my staff reminding me, hey, every year you have to do this, and this. And I remember because I do it all the time. But you want to comply is the bottom line. All right, cool. So what are some insurance considerations? So now, again, you're in business for yourself. What do you got to be thinking about? So if you're going to have a brick and mortar location, like even me, I do a lot of Zoom for my clients. I have a web internet presence, but I also am in the space, and that we have to deal with property, right? We have to deal with other people. There's a whole parking issue in the building, but I have to get insurance for my space. Now, liability insurance. I have a business client. She's a hairstylist. Just rented another hairstyle, rented a booth. First thing I said to her is, do you have liability insurance? I'm assuming you need it. You can make a mistake or someone can sue you. Oh yeah, I need to get that. And how do I do it, Keith? And so you go to a property and casualty agent. And so they'll get you liability insurance. I know in my business, there's liability insurance that is specific for financial advisors. So your industry might have liability insurance specific for your industry, right? If you have vehicles in your business, you have to get insurance on the vehicle. I know with me, when I was a sole proprietor or even an LLC, you're going to track your miles and that'll be your deduction. As an S corp, my company owns my car, and so I have to have a different insurance policy on my car that I have personally, my car that's owned by the company, than I do for my other car in the house that we use, my wife's car. Okay. You need to have workers' comp. How are you going to deal with health insurance? Life insurance. If you're the breadwinner and you're starting a business and then you die and that business income goes away, do you have life insurance to provide income to the house? And then business interruption insurance. Again, if you're a partnership, sometimes, or if you have key people, you can get insurance that says, what happens if my partner dies or my key person dies? You know, if that person dies, man, that was my salesperson. What am I going to do? Well, you can get insurance that will infuse money into the business to replace that lost revenue while you're finding someone to replace that lost revenue. So, or I have an eye practice where they have a policy on all the people, all the eye doctors, because if one eye doctor dies or gets disabled, the revenues are going to suffer until they have insurance to buy each other out. If someone dies, and insurance to replace revenue if someone's disabled, while they're either replacing that doctor or replacing the lost revenue until they get back to their practice. So again, you talk to your property and casualty people about all these type of insurance things. You will incorporate this stuff into your cash flow planning as well. All right. So any questions so far? We doing good? This is what I'm assuming you're all doing this. Awesome. So what are the business plan basics? I think I've been talking about them the entire discussion, right? You want to write down in a simple form. It wants to be objective. You're using it for planning. It's a tool and to communicate your ideas. Keep it short, simple, and sweet. What are the basics? Again, we've been talking about it throughout, right? You know, obviously a table of content, summary, you know, who you are. That's what I like, you know, your purpose, you know, background kind of stuff, you know, what's the business, your financials, and then, you know, all the stuff we've been talking about today. So you also want to build your team, right? So what will your team consist of? In addition to your staff and the people in your company, you want to have a good relationship with a banker. That was even most prevalent during COVID, because if you're in business during COVID and they did that PPP program, there were banks. Well, back up. Most all the banks' primary people they were working with were their current customers. So I know from my personal experience, if you want to go to First Citizens, I'm not knocking back. I love First Citizens, BB&T, which is now Truist, Wells Fargo, all of them. They had a lot of customers. So yeah, their priorities were their customers. So you want a good banking relationship because when you need them, you want them to help you out and be on your side. You know, getting back to lending. If you ever want working capital, or a loan to buy an office or a loan to buy cars, you want to have good relation with your banks. I'm able to go back and forth with my banker a lot. I don't have a lot of needs, but when I'm buying my company cars, it's easy. Hey, I'm shopping for a car now. We get me pre-approved. It's very easy to work with banks if you have that relationship in advance. You want to meet your attorneys in advance before you need them, your accountants, your bookkeepers. You want to have a good insurance agent, a mentor, and even insurance agents. This is where I am a little biased. I am biased towards brokers. What I mean by that is, you know, I know the Allstates, the State Farms, Nationwides, they're great companies. And here's my but. When you work with a Nationwide or Allstate person, from my experience, that's what they're selling you. Good products. There's a lot of companies that you don't even know about that sell through brokers. And they're very competitive. They're great products. And a lot of times a lower cost, because the guy, the Nationwide, the Allstates, you're paying for all their advertising in your premiums. The point I'm getting at is when you're out there building your team, when I'm building my team and I tell people to build their team, find a broker. Ask that person if they're, you know, the McMillan Insurance Agency or the Trey Signer Insurance Group. I know they're brokers. I ask them, are you brokers? Yeah, I represent all these companies. So you want to build your team of people that you could trust and like. How do you build your team? Obviously, ask peers, ask friends. Who do they use? Who do you know? Who do they like? Who do they trust? I'm really big into networking, so I go to a lot of chamber events. I go to a lot of there's a flywheel place. They have networking events. I used to go to Packer Place in Charlotte a lot when they were up and running. Had a lot of great events. My other advisor goes to a lot of events in Charlotte, and we meet a lot of great people there. And over time, you build relationships and friendships, and then hey, let's go grab some lunch together. And so that's how you do it. That's how I did it. So hopefully that's a good way for you all to do it as well. So wow, look at that. I see, this is where I had my timers. I could have talked a lot slower, but that's okay. So self-assessment. This is where, so what's going to happen? So after this class, you're going to get an email from SCORE that will have this presentation in it. And in the back will be this self-assessment. So, take what you learned today, review the material and assess where you're at on a scale of 1 to 10. 10 is, man, I got it perfect, or 1, I have no clue. And that'll kind of give you an idea of what areas you need to work on with your mentor at SCORE or anybody. So complete that survey, assessment. And then start, if you haven't, start your business plan. Here's your homework, write down your purpose, your vision statement, start writing down your plan so people can read it. And then obviously get yourself a mentor and really, do something, if you want, you go on the SCORE website. I'm going to give you a link in a second. You can find these sessions. So everything we talked about today is covered, and this is where you do the work. Where's my pen? Right here. So in the old version of simple steps of this session we just did, when you went through the slides, they used to have on the bottom, session 2. They don't do that anymore. I tell you, when I was doing the overview, which session you did the work. But on the SCORE website, they have the PowerPoints for these. And, working with your mentor on your own, you can go through the work to get everything we talked about today done, if you haven't already started. All right. So, all right, that was it. So I think 2 through 5 in the beginning slide, we first started was the SCORE Charlotte website. So when you get this in the email, there's a lot of great, awesome resources there. That's where you're also going to see the other workshops. For the nonprofit person, I think it's maybe it was yesterday. I literally saw my email from SCORE, the nonprofit seminar being scheduled. So that email for the SCORE website is in the beginning. Here's another great resource. There's a lot of great templates on both websites. There's cash flow templates. There's a lot of great resources for you. So here again, another great link for you. And you're also going to get a survey afterwards. We talk about feedback. We also love feedback. If we did a great job today, let SCORE know. If there's things that we could do better as an organization and in this presentation, let SCORE know. And if there's anything that we can do better as presenters, please let us know, because then you'll benefit the next class if you let us know how we can do this part as presenters better as well. All right. Or if we did awesome, let SCORE know that Bill and Keith were amazing. All right.
Don't forget, we have to have Christy join us and offer her the services of the library.
Correct. So did I have any questions before you transition to the library part? All right, awesome. So yes, so now we are going transitions. Now the library has a great, awesome resource that they're going to share with you now to help you guys with your businesses as well. So go ahead and share your screen and take it from here.
I think I'm on there. Let me see.
You should be
There
good to
I
go,
am.
Christy.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Can you guys see that? Yes, wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much for the introduction. I'm Christy Buchanan Wellman. I'm with the Charlotte Mecklenburg Library, and I'm here to share with you some resources that will help you with starting to build your small business and also your business plan. Does your business plan have gaps? If so, the library has resources with data you can use to fill those gaps, and you've already paid for it because you have a library card. And if you don't, you need to get one. For every dollar that goes into your library, you get $3 back worth of service and resources. So let's take a look at an example. Here's an overview of what we're working towards today. Do you have a pet? If I was going to open a pet supply store, I would need data. Hands up. This is a market survey, so yes. Where can I find this information? Well, first off, we have the ABI Informed Collection. This is showing us that 70% of households in the US have at least one pet. This is really nice to add for information in your business plan. Where did I find this in the ABI Informed Collection? It has some profiles here called the First Research Done in Bradstreet Industry Profile, and it comes out, I believe, either quarterly or monthly, I believe quarterly. So you can always get the latest write-up with that. The ABI Informed Collection is available through the state library. So even if you're not a Charlotte Mecklenburg Library card holder, you can access this through NC Live. So it's a statewide resource and you can access it through your library. Let's see here. Now, next, we're going to see who is our competition. There are 269 businesses in Mecklenburg County that are already selling pet supplies. How did I find this out? It's a great resource called Data Axle Reference Solutions. And it's going to give, it's like a giganto Yellow Pages database on steroids. You're going to be able to search by SIC codes. You're going to be able to search by NCIS codes. But really, keyword and Yellow Pages keyword lookup is just as good as knowing the SIC codes. You can look by geography. You can even go down to street and zip code. A popular search limiter is metro area for competitors. So there's all sorts of ways that you can do that. And that one is a resource that's available through the state library through NC Live. And I'll show you how to access that in just a moment. Now, even with 269 competitors in the area, there are still gaps in the area that do not have a pet supply store nearby. And again, Data Axle Reference Solutions, you'll be able to do a heat map and you'll be able to find out where those are and find where the gaps are. Now, a pet supply store should be located near where people live who spend money on their pets. And how do you find that out? Well, that's done through a resource called Simply Analytics. It's a mapping application that enables you to quickly create professional quality thematic maps and reports using demographic, business, and marketing data. In this particular example, it shows Mecklenburg County, and it shows over here in the key legend in the upper right corner there. These are the people who spend the most on pets, and it's organized by census tract. When you pull up the report, it's going to be by zip code. It's much more accurate if you can do census tracts. It's a much more concentrated area. When you create an account on Simply Analytics, you can just go in and try it out as a guest, but it won't remember any of your search parameters. But it's a free account if you are a Charlotte Mecklenburg Library card holder. This is not a statewide resource. This is something that you would need a Charlotte Mecklenburg Library card for. So if you'd like to get one, I highly recommend it, even if you don't live in Mecklenburg County. It's $45 a year. Or if you own property in Mecklenburg, even if you don't live here, or if you are a student in Mecklenburg County, whether that's private school, whether that's college, whatever, you can get free access. You can get a free access or a free library card that way too. But it's $45 a year or $35 a year if you're a senior. And it's well worth every penny because really using this resource plus Data Axle is going to give you a really nice overview of where to put your business. In 2022, people in Mecklenburg County spent almost $500 million on pets. And again, the lovely thing about Simply Analytics is you can just keep playing around with it and keep adding stats and adding stats and adding, comparing it with different areas, like how does Mecklenburg compare to North Carolina? How does Mecklenburg County compare to USA? There's all different ways that you can populate that to build your business plan and show what it is as proof for your business plan. So these folks here in this example spent almost $35 million on pet services. Hard to believe, but that's just in 1 year. So what this means is that $500 million in sales on pet supplies, 70% of households, equals over 200,000 in Mecklenburg County. You've got 269 competitors in the Mecklenburg County area, but even so, evenly spread, that's over $1 million per competitor. So you're not competing against one another. Over 1,000 households per competitor that you can serve, and you can get a list of businesses nearby to invite to the grand opening through Data Axle. So all of that you can get through just those two resources that I mentioned so far in these slides. Using Simple Analytics and Data Axle, it's possible to narrow down to the specific areas within town with high spending and low competition. So right away, you know where to put your business. For likely areas, more details about age groups, education, race, language, and housing helps to determine what social media platforms might reach the most customers. So again, you can use these to determine what's going to be the best way to market your resource and how to do it. Now that we know where to put our business, what is it that we want to say? You can find quotes from articles that experts give to give authority to your postings and to your materials. We have these two resources. Well, there's two. One's listed here is called Masterfile Premier. The other one's called ProQuest Central. And both of those have really nice resources that you can use for quotes to post for authority in your postings and in your marketing materials. Definitely keep up to date with local business resources. You definitely want to know what the changes are in the environment of where you live. In the Charlotte-Mecklenburg area, our two major resources would be the Charlotte Business Journal and the Charlotte Observer. If it was your local library within another part of the state, they're probably going to subscribe to their local paper and their local business resource as well. Always you want to stay on top of best practices with how to do things. So we offer, the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Library offers two resources. One's called LinkedIn Learning. The other one's called Universal Class. These are Charlotte-Mecklenburg Library only resources, but they offer thousands of courses on things like web design, web development, IT education, and instruction. And also for those classes that you never had an opportunity to take in school. Universal Class is really nice. It gives you continuing education credits. I'm not sure exactly how that bonds with the area colleges and universities, but if you complete the course in Universal Class within a 3-month period, you can get a certificate for completing the course. You can also just audit it if you want to do it that way without getting any credit. Instead of looking for individual customers, find out where the herd hangs out. This is also a Charlotte-Mecklenburg Library only resource. It's called the Gale Directory Library. And with that, you can find the Encyclopedia of Associations, both regional, state, and local organizations. But it's definitely worthwhile. So that way you can do a mass email to a particular group that would be particularly interested in your products. Now, to get a review for those resources, and if you want instruction on how to use them, so far as coming to the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Library, you don't have to have a library card to participate in the Zoom sessions, but we have Book a Librarian Business Research, and also we have Book a Librarian sessions for nonprofits also. And I'll cover how to find some extra things about nonprofits since that was mentioned earlier. So you can just book a Zoom session with one of us and we will review how to use these resources online. So it's a library. You knew this was coming. We've got business books, audiobooks, downloadable ebooks, and e-audiobooks and more. So I'm going to I'm going to stop sharing this and I'm going to flip over to some other really nice resources here. And also, don't panic. You are going to get an info packet of all of these resources that I mentioned today, plus some how-to sheets on how to use them. So don't worry about furiously writing any of this stuff down. You're going to get a nice info packet on how to use them. So, so far as accessing those resources on NC Live to see if your library carries it, if you're within the state of North Carolina, if you go to nclive.org and click on resources, just choose browse all databases and you're going to get this super cool list here of resources, and it'll tell you if your library carries it. Once you click on a link, like here's ABI Informed Collection that I mentioned earlier, when you click on it, this is going to be the point where it would prompt you for your library card and you choose which library you're coming from within the state. So this is how you can tell if your library carries it or not. So far as an alternative for the Simply Analytics, since it's not a statewide resource, that they do have a link here to the State Data Center. Let me see if I can pull this over here, or now I can scroll down. Yay! So if you come down to the S's here, you can see the State Data Center. It's just going to give general population information. It's not going to give you that specific data like you saw in Simply Analytics for targeting those groups that spend on your products, but it will give you some basic demographic information for your area. So, but that another reason to consider going with us if you decide to get an out-of-county card. So far as other nifty library resources, this is one that Charlotte Mecklenburg Library has. We have something called the Small Business Collection. It's a collection of ebooks that's available through our library. I'm going to click on it so you can see it. We have a special business collection. If you just click on collections, you can choose business. It goes right to it, and you can see all the business resources that are available that you can just check out and read right on your tablet or phone or laptop or however you like to read it. Nice thing about ebooks is you don't have to worry about overdue fines. It's immediately available. Let's see here. Also, we have the one of my favorite is the Business Plans Handbook, and that's available through a resource called Gale eBooks. Gale eBooks, let's see here. I'm not sure if Gale eBooks is available through the state library or not. Let me quickly check. It is. Okay, so super duper. Since you can access this through the state library, let me go back to Gale eBooks. This is a wonderful resource for the Business Plans Handbook. Business Plans Handbook comes out about once a quarter, I think. Let me pull this over here so I can see it. When I pull up Gale eBooks, I can just quickly click on businesses, and I can click on the Business Plans Handbook, and I can search within the series. You can see here's some of the latest ones for 2024. So it's come out. It's about mid 2024 now, so about once a quarter. And so I'm going to do pet supplies. And it's going to give me actual business plans that are actual businesses within the within the continent of North America. So it's both US and Canada, and it will give you an actual business plan from an actual business that is out there right now. So you can get an example of what to do. So there's, online bird products, business marketing firm, dog training, so there's all sorts of fun things out there. And I just typed in pet supplies and it brought, if I clicked on one of these, it's going to give you a full write-up. Here's your executive summary. Here's your industry analysis. So if you need a template for something, if it's similar to yours, here's a nice template to get you started, which I like. Something else, this is me being a nerd right now. We just recently got this at Charlotte Mecklenburg Library. If you write any code or any apps and you found it difficult to get those up-to-date resources to learn the latest code for whatever, whether that's Python or whatever, our location now has O'Reilly for public libraries, and I'm super excited about that. So it used to be with O'Reilly that any of those code books that you want to learn, whether it was Red Hat Linux or whatever, our problem was that the latest editions were always in print, but they were so expensive we could only afford to buy like 5 copies. And the ebooks were older, which is silly, but that was the access we had at the time. So wipe that off the map. Now with O'Reilly, you can get the latest for whatever it is that you want to know, pull up the latest code examples, and bam, you're off to the races if you're wanting to create the latest app on whatever. Only drawback with the public library edition is that you can't save where you are in the course or in the book. You're going to have to remember where you left off because you can't create a personal account in it. That's the only drawback with using O'Reilly for public libraries. Since if you don't have access to LinkedIn Learning or to Universal Class, a free resource that's available to anybody that you don't even need a resource for is called GCF Learn Free. You can just Google that. It's available by Goodwill Services, and what they do is they help people with core basic skills. So if you need to do basic technology skills like how to use Microsoft Office, email, computers, it gives you video tutorials on whatever your platform is. And that's available to anybody. Also different work skills, career planning, workplace skills, basics like that for professional development and improvement. That's all freely available. So just Google GCF Learn Free. The address is up here, edugcfglobal.org, and it'll show you all the course resources they have available with video tutorials. Somebody mentioned earlier about nonprofit services. The library, our particular library does have a roster of classes that we offer available online via Zoom, so far as things like introduction to finding grants, how to make the most of your profiling guide star so that foundations can find you, and other things like that, so far as getting your nonprofit off the ground. So I've included a brochure in the info packet that I'm going to share that will show you all the different online courses that we have that will help with improving your nonprofit. I'm not trying to compete with what SCORE is doing because they're going to be much more in depth, but we will give you some basics to help you get started. Also, we have nonprofit one-on-ones as well, so far as using developing your nonprofit and the resources that are available. But really, SCORE is going to go steps further than what we can offer here, but we will get your feet off the ground. And then also we have a resource here at our location called the Foundation Directory Online if you're looking for funding. This is for 501c3 nonprofits only. If you're not a 501c3, it's not a resource for you, but if you are, it's a great place to find things. If you've never written a grant before, we'll review with you the kinds of grants to try for first to get your feet wet. And there are several libraries that have this. It's not just Charlotte-Mecklenburg Library, and the way you can find that is to go to learning.candid.org. This is in the info pack I'm going to share with you, so don't panic. So what you can do is go to learning.candid.org. And from there, you can click on the Find Us button. And once you're there, you can put in your zip code and it'll tell you the closest library that has the Foundation Directory Online that's accessible. Here we are at the top. It was Charlotte-Mecklenburg Library, but then also you can see underneath there's several library locations that have it available. One thing I can say about Charlotte-Mecklenburg Library versus others is that Charlotte-Mecklenburg Library is the only one that I know of that has several library locations where you can access it from. Most others that are outside of Mecklenburg County will only have it at their main branch because Candid, who is the one who runs the Foundation Directory, they want to have staff trained so that we'll have somebody that you can ask for help there with how to use it and get started. So usually you're going to find that resource at those main locations. And then with that, so far as getting a library card, if you would like to get one from us, it's $45 a year. You don't need to have a physical card. You can get a digital version of the card. For non-residents 62 years and older, it's $35. And it gives you access to all the digital resources, so you can also download ebooks. Oh, and I also forgot to say, so far as Candid is concerned, they do have their own nonprofit ebook library. So if you go under Candid at a glance, you should be able to see, where's our Candid ebooks here? I know they're up here. Maybe not Candid at a glance, but Oh, under resources. So under resources, just like with the Libby ebooks that I showed you for the business collection, Candid has their own specific nonprofit collection that you can also add as a separate library to your Libby app on your mobile device. So these are freely available. You just have to create an account and you can check them out one at a time. That's their limit. And that's my wrap so far as business resources are concerned. So you know, it definitely, if you have a library card, you're definitely going to have some lovely resources to add to your business plan and to help boost your small business. And with that, I'll stop sharing and I will share the link with the info packet so that you guys have it. It should be there in the link, and now you've got the info packet with all the resources that I have mentioned. Anybody have any questions for me?
Well, I got to get jokingly better at my pacing again because I spoke too fast. Look at that. We're done way earlier than we normally are.
Woo!
Christy, Keith, let me interrupt just for a second.
But
Christy, the
Mhm.
link you just sent looks like it went to hosts and panelists. Did it
Oh
go
dear.
to?
Okay, yeah, let me send it to I'm glad you said that. Let me go back and do it for everyone. Okay, here we go. Can everybody see it now?
There you go.
Yay!
awesome.
Hip hip hooray.
Well, like I said, I've gotten really good. Sometimes I nailed it right where I had perfect timing, and this time I went so fast I got you all to rest your days earlier to start working on your businesses. So, do we have any other follow-up questions before we kind of sign off? Let everybody get back to their day. All right. Well, awesome. Well, definitely everybody go out, get yourself a mentor. We wish you all the best of luck and success with your businesses. And thank you again for everybody for attending. And we wish you the best.
Good luck, everybody.
Good luck. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care, guys.